Hi, pretty exciting day here at RadRover Way. FedEx was just here dropping off some new tires. Hi, I'm Arnie and this is RadRover Way, where we talk RadRovers, we talk rad power bikes, we go for rides, we do reviews, you get the idea. If you're interested in any of that, why don't you consider subscribing? Just click that big red subscribe button, click the bell icon so you won't miss anything, check the show notes so you know for more information. Fun stuff today. So Orgin8 Supercell tires going on today. Some new tubes also. Figured what the heck, if I'm going to do it I might as well go the whole hog. Wow, I kind of expected these to come, in a flat box. I didn't expect them all folded up. I don't know what that's going to do to getting these on the rims. I have to say, it just kind of surprises me. Wow, it's just okay. Well, so if you order some of these, be prepared. They come all folded up, and I hope it doesn't make for flat spots, but we'll find out soon enough. 26 by 4, 120 TPI. And in all candor, I don't understand the 30, 60, 120 TPI thing. It's something I should investigate and study. If you can explain it to me, why don't you leave a comment down in the description and educate me a little bit. New tubes also, and as somebody who's ridden road bikes the majority of their lives, I have always used Presta valves. So when I got these new tubes to replace the old ones, I made sure I had Presta valves, not the Schrader valves. I don't know actually if they're any better, but I do like that you can tighten down these little nuts here, which you probably can't see, and I think it gives a better seal. Let's get into this. Looking at these closely, they do not have an arrow showing direction of roll, so that makes it easier to get on. You'll notice if you've ever looked at your Kenda tires, the Juggernauts have an arrow that indicates direction of roll. I have Mr. Tuffy's in my tires, the tire liners, so I'll have to be switching that over also. One of the nice things about having a fat tire bike is these tires are so much easier, and flats and everything else, it's so much easier to fix than little skinny tired road bikes. They fit so much tighter. I'm putting in the Mr. Tuffy liners, and I put those in first. And again, I don't know that there's a real absolute right or wrong way to do this, but I put them in, get it as flat as I can or inside the tire, and then you're going to want to take your tube and inflate it a little bit so that you can fit it in there and it'll hold the liner in place. Kind of makes sense to me to do it that way. We'll take the cap off and the little nut that secures it. Turn on my pump. All right, so I've filled it up a little bit. We're just gonna slide it in here, just like that. And it holds the liner in. And then comes the fun part. These things come on so easily, and we're just going to flip it over and seat this side, just like that. These foldable tires are really easy to mount. So simple. Put this little nut on, holds it in place. I'm just going to pump this thing up. The tires say max of 20 psi. I have another video on this pump that I think is really great. You can set it to a certain air pressure and set it and forget it. I have it set for 23, which is a little bit over, so I'm going to have to adjust because I would typically go a little bit higher with the Kendas. Just checking to make sure everything is seated properly. I stopped at 15 psi. I don't typically want to run them as hard as they possibly can, and we'll see how that goes. Let's slap this back on the bike. In one of my previous videos, I mentioned flipping the bicycle over on its handlebars and seat, and there was a comment. How do I go about doing that? I just grab the brake handle for the rear brake and pull backward until it flips over on its back. You'll notice I've already got the front wheel off, and you just keep going like this. And you'll notice, obviously, the fender is going to hit the ground, but the fenders are flexible enough, and you just keep going like this until it's resting on the saddle and on the handlebars. Nothing terribly dramatic about it. We're going to slap that front wheel on here. Just like that. And we'll just tighten these down. Perfect. I'm going to have to adjust my brakes a little bit, I think. Rubbing just a smidge, but that's a different video. And cinch the quick release down. There we go. Orgin8 Supercells. I might have to put a little bit more air in there. That feels a little bit soft, but we'll give it a ride here in a little while and see. Time for number 2. We're going to do the back. So I've moved to the back wheel, and a viewer asked about, the best way to go about changing a flat, fixing a flat. Well, I don't have a flat, but so I'm not going to talk about that per se, although I will address, he mentioned that some people suggest fixing the flat without taking the wheel off. I have never done that. I just think it would be very difficult to find the holes. Sometimes they're very small, so I can't really address that. I can't address taking the wheel off, and people make a big deal out of it, but it isn't that hard. It's not as easy as the front, obviously. You just need to take your wrench, and it's the 18 millimeter end, and just loosen that puppy up, take it off, and you're going to have a washer, and then you're going to need to take off this little nut that holds this. I don't know what this part here is called, but it locks the axle in place because the axle has flat edges here, and it keeps the axle from moving. So that's going to be coming off there too. I believe this is 4 mil here, and we'll take this off. This holds the fender stay, and it also holds this little doodad here, axle locking thing. The screws that come from Rad are not always the best. They tend to strip out. I've read people having to drill them out, so you really have to be careful. Don't over tighten it. And we'll take this off. And there we go. You might notice that I actually went and bought a new one because the other one was getting stripped out, and I could only get a certain length. So this has actually 3 washers on it, and there's that lock in place kind of thing that I was talking about. You might be able to see how that has flat edges too, and it slides over the axle, helps keep things locked into place. So side 1, done. Okay, derailleur side. Looks like I should do some cleaning here. You'll need to move this rubber cap down along. Oh, one of the things that I did already is there's a cable tie that comes in here, holds this in. You'll have to cut that. By the way, the zip ties, you should bring some along with you. You should get a little packet and have them with you as part of your everyday carry so that you can zip tie it back in there. Okay, so we'll loosen this side up. There we go. With everything going on this side, it's really more of a pain than the other side because you've got, you know, the cable going to the motor. You've got this thing here, which you could, the derailleur protector, which you could take off if you wanted to make your life a little bit easier. I never have done that. And then you have to disconnect your electronics here. And I believe I've got that loose enough. And that's all there is to it. It's a little bit of a tight fit when first time you do this, getting the wheel back in and out. But it's really not that big of a deal. You just kind of have to jiggle it back and forth. And after you've done it a couple of times, it gets easier. I think the forks might spread apart a little bit. Anyway, not difficult to do at all. Getting back to that original question, it's up to you when you're fixing a flat. If you want to try that, leaving the wheel on the bike and try pulling the inner tube out and trying to fix it that way, let me know how it works. I've never done it. I probably never will. We'll just move the derailleur out of the way, work this back and forth, and pull it out. Oh, forgot to move the kickstand out of the way. This little guy that I mentioned just a little bit ago that kind of fell on the floor goes on the brake side, and you just slide it in here. Remember, the axle has flat. This has flat. Just slide it on there. Okay, so if anything, this is the worst part. Getting this back in here. Typically what you should do at the very beginning is set your gear changer to the lowest possible, and then when you put this back in, it makes it a lot easier. And I forgot to mention that. And you just set it in there. There's a washer right in here that you'll see that needs to go on the outside of the frame. Lining everything up here, the flat bits. Slides right in there after you get everything lined up, and voila! You just have to put everything back together again. Tighten this guy up. I never tighten everything all the way the first time. Just tighten this. And we'll put this back together. Slide that in. And then I'll do the other side. For some reason I lost the audio here. Notice the torsion arm goes on first. And then you're going to put on your washer. And then the nut. Just get it on there. You don't have to tighten it down all the way. Next, you're going to put that little screw with washers, if you need them, in to hold the stay and that torsion arm in place. Remember, as I said earlier, when you tighten the screw down, don't do it too hard. You run the risk of stripping out the head. You can see I slipped a little bit there. You have to be careful. There you go. Not too tight, just tight enough. And then tighten down the nut. Go to the other side, do the same thing. And one last tightening on this side. Don't want that thing coming off. Put your rubber cap on. Zip tie for the electronic cable to the motor on the other side. Again, I'll repeat, in case you have to change out your tire, your tube, I should say, you want to have one of these along just so you can hold that cord in place. Now let's flip it back over on its wheels. Just lift up by the handlebars, roll it up. Again, the fender gets a little bit crunched, but you can see right there it didn't hurt it much, a little bit of scuffing. And there you have it, the Orgin8 Supercells mounted on the RadRover.
Well, I've got about 30 miles on the new tires. The first 20 I had them inflated at 15, and there was a lot of self-steer. Now I have it up to 20, and it's much better. 20 is the max. So it's much better, fully inflated. And check out how quiet these are. It's amazing. Gone is the roar of the Juggernauts. Quite a difference. I'm calling these the stealth tires now. Isn't that amazing? And as you can well imagine, the rolling resistance is so much less too. So, all in all, I'm really very pleased. But even at 20, there is still some self-steer on sharp turns. Otherwise, no problems at all. Loving them.